You may have spent your whole life wondering why you were always the one who endured, why you always felt different, misunderstood, or isolated. But if you have ever been the black sheep of your family, your circle, or even this entire world, know this. You are not cursed. You are chosen, not to suffer, but to transform suffering into light. From a very young age, you knew what it meant to carry burdens. Your shoulders have been the place where others unloaded what they could not face in themselves. You carried their wounds, their emotions, their fears, until you believed they were yours. You thought you were born to endure, to preserve, to save, but the truth is, you were not sent here to carry, you were sent here to shine. The light within you has been occupied by the pain of others, and your journey is to reclaim it, to remember that true strength is not in holding pain, but in alchemizing it into wisdom. You can bear a great deal, but you cannot stay still in the face of injustice. When you see someone being trampled, when something wrong is happening, the energy inside you rises like a wave. That is not anger, it is the voice of your soul. For your soul was born to restore order, not to obey the darkness. Yet in this false matrix, every gift is inverted. The world has made you believe that sensitivity is weakness, integrity is rebellion, and kindness is naivete. But you are not wrong. You are simply operating at your true frequency in a world that has forgotten how to function in the light. So they call you a rebel, because you ask questions where others stay silent, because you cannot tolerate deceit or the distortion of values. And for that, you are labeled difficult. But you are not defiant. You are the bearer of a new frequency born within an old system. When you refuse to compromise with what is false, you are holding the original vibration of your soul, and that frightens the darkness. You want to be seen but fear being seen, because betrayal once taught you that visibility invites harm. So you learn to hide, to speak less, to feel more. But when you hide, the world loses the chance to see your true light. Your desire to be seen is not vanity, it is remembrance. You know that when you live at your true frequency, everything around you begins to heal. You have sighed many times, thinking, why is no one capable of leading? And you waited for someone to awaken, to speak, to rise. But the one you were waiting for has always been you. You fear your own light because you were once shamed for it, afraid that if you shine, you'll be hated. If you stand up, you'll be called arrogant. Yet the moment you begin to lead yourself, the universe rearranges itself, because a new order begins whenever a light bearer steps out of their own shadow. You were punished for being too sensitive, too emotional, but that sensitivity is your sacred antenna. It connects you to the divine. It allows you to read energy, to see through the fog of pretense, to sense truth beneath illusion. That is not weakness, that is power. You were designed to feel deeply, because only those who feel deeply can truly heal. Still, your light disturbs the false matrix. Those who are accustomed to darkness feel uneasy in your presence, so they unconsciously act as guards, trying to hold you down. They may be friends, colleagues, even family. But do not resent them. They are not evil, they are afraid. Deep down, they sense that you threaten the old order they cling to. And they are right, you do. Wherever you go, truth begins to leak through the cracks. You long to be loved, to be nurtured, but because you did not receive it, you became the nurturer for everyone else. You listened, you helped, you sacrificed until you were drained. You confused the need to be loved with the duty to give. In truth, when you learn to nourish your own soul, when you are full, love flows effortlessly without strain. You were not born to be depleted. You were born to overflow. You carry ancient wounds, but within them lies ancient wisdom. Many of you feel as though you bear ancestral burdens, carrying things you never caused. But you are not carrying them, you are transforming them. You hold the genetic code of generations that never healed, to end a cycle they could not. You are not cursed. You are the one who breaks the curse. And yes, you may feel lonely among crowds, among loved ones, even in places that should feel like home. But loneliness is not a punishment. It is a sacred initiation of your soul before it shines. Loneliness is the space where you meet yourself again, where your true frequency amplifies. When you find peace within, loneliness turns into oneness. Alone equals all, one. You realize you were never separate from the source. You are part of it. And finally, you see that you were never meant to save others by suffering, but to heal yourself first. When you choose joy, when you dare to love, to live, to breathe with your soul, you are not selfish. You are opening the door for the world to follow. True healing is not carrying darkness. It is shining so brightly that darkness cannot survive. You are the convergence of two streams, a horizontal one, your biological family, containing both light and shadow of your ancestors, and a vertical one, your cosmic lineage, the frequency of love, truth, and wisdom from which you came. Because you hold both, you are called the black sheep. But in truth, you are the gatekeeper between worlds. Chapter 1. The one exiled from love. From a very young age, you learned that love was conditional. It didn't come because you were yourself, but because you did what others wanted. You were loved when you were obedient, quiet, and agreeable, and that love was withdrawn whenever you showed your true emotions or spoke truths others didn't want to hear. From then on, you began to shrink yourself to speak less, feel less, exist less. You became the child who could read the room, who knew when to smile and when to disappear. Your sensitivity, instead of being seen as a gift, became a burden. You grew up among people who only knew how to love with conditions. They loved you when you made them proud, but distanced themselves when you made them ashamed. They wanted you to be like them, to live the way they lived, to believe what they believed, and when you couldn't, they called it betrayal. But you didn't betray anyone. You simply refused to betray yourself. Yet to those who live by illusion, authenticity feels like a crime. And so you became the problem. They used your story as a warning to others. Don't be like them. Look how much pain they've caused everyone. What they didn't see was that you were the one carrying the pain of the entire family. They didn't understand that you didn't rebel out of selfishness. You rebelled because you were suffocating in pretense. You only wanted to breathe. You only wanted to exist without being punished for being real. There were times you asked yourself, am I really that unlovable? You replayed every word, every action, searching for your fault. But there was none. If anything, your mistake was seeing what others refused to see, the cracks in the perfect picture, the secrets buried beneath morality and pride. You never intended to expose anyone. You simply couldn't tolerate falsehood any longer. And in a world afraid of truth, the one who speaks it is always exiled from the table. Perhaps you left home in silence. No fight, no farewell, just a fatigue that had ripened. You walked away carrying guilt. Guilt for choosing yourself over peacekeeping. But time will show you that was not selfishness. It was your soul's instinct for survival. Because no one can live authentically in a place where truth is forbidden. Ironically, you were called cold. Yet you were the one who loved the deepest. You loved enough to endure, to sacrifice, to lose everything just to not lose yourself. Others loved to control. You loved to set free. And for that you were cast out. But that exile, as painful as it was the beginning of your freedom. One day, when you are calm enough to look back, you will see that being pushed away was never punishment. It was life's way of protecting you from a version of love built on control and condition. It forced you to leave so that you could discover real love, love that doesn't require performance, effort, or permission to exist. You were never exiled from love. You were expelled from a place where love had been distorted. And even though you might have felt alone, lost, or shattered at that moment, something within you began to awaken a new awareness, a living instinct, a whisper that said, "This is not where you belong." This story isn't about loss. It's about realization that rejection doesn't destroy you. It liberates you. It marks the first step of your journey. Understanding that true love never begins with another person. It begins with you. Chapter 2. The ancestral wound. The nameless burden. As you begin to look deeper within, you start to realize that the pain you carry is not entirely yours. It's like a thick smoke, drifting through generations from those who came before you, those who never learned how to love, how to apologize, or how to live authentically. And somehow you were born to end that cycle. But before healing, you must walk through it. Dysfunctional families don't begin with cruelty, but with fear. Your grandparents may have lived through poverty, war, or violence. They learned to stay silent because speaking up brought punishment. They learned to pretend they were fine just to survive. And they passed that down not through words, but through energy, an unspoken language of unresolved pain. Your parents may have tried their best, but if they were never loved in a healthy way, how could they teach you to love yourself? You became the vessel where unhealed pain converged. You could feel the tension in a room before anyone spoke. You sensed that something was wrong even when everyone smiled. You became the emotional barometer of the family when someone was angry. Your chest tightened. When someone was sad, you rushed to comfort them. You thought it was kindness, but it was survival. If you could sense and soothe others early, maybe you could avoid their anger, avoid abandonment. You carried emotional storms no one taught you to set down. This cycle is cruel. What one generation doesn't heal, the next is forced to bear. But what makes you different is you can feel it. You can't pretend it's fine. You can't keep living as if everything is normal. Your sensitivity makes you see what the entire family has denied for decades. That's why they call you a betrayer, but in truth, you're the first one awake enough to stop the pattern. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." You are the one your lineage chose to awaken that unconscious. You are the first to ask, why do we treat each other this way? You are the first to realize that silence is not peace. You are the first to step out of the generational play the roles of victim, savior, and controller. And so, you became the black sheep, not because you're bad, but because you're different. You refuse to play by the rules of the dark. You refuse to keep pretending. You were chosen not to suffer, but to end the suffering. The irony is that once you realize this, you'll enter a period of deep loneliness. When you decide not to carry your ancestors' burden, the whole system pushes back. Family, relatives, even friends may call you ungrateful, arrogant, or disrespectful. But remember, they don't hate you. They fear the truth you embody. Because if you can break free, they'll have to face themselves. And that's more terrifying than hell. The pain you carry is not yours alone, it's energetic inheritance. And you don't heal it by enduring more, you heal it by living differently. When you choose honesty over pretense, you're correcting an ancient belief. When you say no instead of staying silent, you're rewriting history. When you forgive but don't return, you're freeing the entire bloodline. That's why it had to be you. Not because you're weak, but because you're the first strong enough to stop it. You have the capacity to see, to feel, and to transform awareness into action. You are the intersection between shadow and light, between the old and the new. You didn't come to please your family, you came to liberate it. In Chapter 3, the soul contract. At a certain point in your healing journey, you begin to realize that what happened in your family wasn't random, it was part of a soul design. Not a blind fate, but a deep vow, a promise your soul made before entering this life. You were not born into a toxic family to be destroyed. You were born there to be a catalyst for awakening. Your soul knew exactly where your light was most needed, and that is why you chose to step into the darkest place. Not because you deserved to be hurt, but because only a strong soul dares walk into hell carrying a flame. Imagine that before this lifetime, your soul saw the whole panorama, the patterns of hurt, the repeating cycles, the unnamed pain in your lineage. And in that vastness, you said, I will go. I will bring the light there. You had no body then, no fear, no knowledge of tears. You knew only this, that true love is not running from the dark, but entering it to bring healing. Then you were born into the family your soul had chosen. But as you grew, you forgot that vow. You saw only the wounds, the rejection, the misunderstandings. You asked, why me? And your soul, though quiet, kept whispering, because you are the one who can endure this without losing your kindness. Every conflict, every insult, every injury, is a test to help you remember who you are. The people who hurt you were not random. They were unwitting teachers. At the soul level, they agreed to play the antagonist so you could learn strength, boundaries, and conscious love. Not every soul is brave enough to sign such a contract. Some choose the easier road to be loved, understood, protected. You chose the road of fire because you knew that only by passing through the fire does the soul temper into light. Carl Jung once said, "No enlightenment is achieved by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Your family is the darkness you're called to make conscious. By facing it without fleeing, without drowning in resentment, you fulfill your soul's task, turning karma into awareness, turning pain into wisdom. This does not mean you must forgive every abuse or return to those who harmed you. In truth, stopping the pattern, setting boundaries, and choosing a different life is how your soul completes the contract. Forgiveness doesn't mean acceptance. It means seeing the meaning behind the pain without letting it keep steering you. When you recognize that everything that happened, rejection, isolation, even the moments you felt you might break, was part of an awakening, your heart grows lighter. Not because the pain vanishes, but because you found the purpose within it. You begin to understand, I wasn't being punished, I was being trained. You were trained to be strong without losing compassion, to love without losing your boundaries, to see truth without needing to hate anyone. This is soul wisdom, not learned from books, but forged by experience. And as you remember this contract, everything shifts. You stop seeing yourself as a victim and begin to see yourself as the awakened one. You look at your family not with judgment, but with understanding. You see your parents, siblings, even those who hurt you, all performing their roles in a larger soul drama. This does not erase their responsibility, but it returns your freedom. Because when you grasp why you were chosen, you stop being trapped in why did they do this to me, and move into what did I learn from this? That question marks the turning point from suffering to awareness, from karma to freedom. You did not come here to live someone else's life. You came to remember that you are light even when surrounded by darkness. And in the moment you accept your role with love, the soul contract begins to be fulfilled. Chapter 4. Why you were chosen? Perhaps in your early years you felt forgotten by God, the universe, or fate. For if there truly was a plan for your soul, why would it begin with pain, rejection, and loneliness? But then you realize, no light is born in safety. Every strong soul is forged in adversity, because only there does essence reveal itself. You cannot cultivate compassion without having been wounded by cruelty. You cannot learn self-love without having been rejected. You cannot learn to stand in the light without having been lost in the dark. This is not punishment, it is refinement. Your soul did not come to experience perfection, but to remember the power of love in the very places that seem unlovable. People often say, you chose your parents. That can feel impossible to accept if you grew up in a home starved of affection or marked by violence. But through the eyes of the soul, you see that the lack itself created the space for awareness to grow. Had you been born into a perfect family, you might never have needed to seek the true nature of love. Precisely because you were not loved well, you were compelled to learn to love yourself, and that is a rare form of awakening. A soul contract is not ink on paper. It is an energetic agreement, a sacred covenant that we will evolve together, even if through pain. The souls of your parents, your siblings, even those who harmed you, signed that covenant. They are not necessarily bad people. They are playing roles that serve your awakening. Some souls agree to play the antagonist so that you learn to stand up, to grow strength, to remember who you are. So when you revisit old wounds, try changing the question. Instead of, why did they do this to me? Ask, what did they come to teach me? In pain, there is a message. In betrayal, a lesson on boundaries. In silence, an invitation to turn inward. In abandonment, a chance to choose yourself for the first time. Those who hurt you may never recognize their soul role. They may keep living unconsciously, repeating the same parts. But you, the one reading this, are the one awakened. And when one node in the web awakens, the entire system begins to shift. The pain you heal today doesn't end with you. It ends a cycle running through generations. Imagine yourself standing between two worlds. Behind you, a procession of people holding old beliefs that love is control, silence is peace, endurance is virtue. Before you, an open expanse where the soul is free and love needs no conditions. You are the bridge between these worlds. That is why your path is not easy, but you are not alone. In the unseen depths, souls are watching over you, ancestors who have awakened, invisible teachers, benevolent forces. They cannot walk for you, but they steady your steps. Every time you choose honesty over performance, they smile. Every time you say no to what is unworthy, they nod. Every time you choose love without control, they rejoice. And one day, you will feel the miracle. The pain that once brought you to your knees softens into strength within your heart. You no longer resent the past nor search for excuses for anyone. You simply understand everything was necessary for your soul to wake up. That is when the soul contract is fulfilled, when you are no longer driven by wounds, but begin to live as your true soul, when you no longer exist to survive, but are present to shine. Your journey is not about revenge or proving yourself. It is a homecoming, a return to the truth that your light was never taken. You were sent into darkness to learn how to kindle it yourself. And when you light your own flame, others, whether they admit it or not, see more clearly. So stop asking, why me? And ask, what will I do with this gift? The gift of awareness, of compassion, of turning pain into wisdom. For when you understand why you were chosen, you stop fleeing your past and start walking as one who carries a mission. In that moment, you are no longer the family's black sheep. You are the one who wakes the flock. Chapter 5, The Sacred Solitude. When the universe forces you to be alone, after you recognize the soul contract and begin stepping out of old patterns, an empty space appears. It isn't as loud as pain, nor as intense as crisis. It is simply emptiness. You look around and realize you no longer belong anywhere, no longer bonded to your family as before, yet not quite connected to your true community. This is the phase many awakened souls call the spiritual desert, a silent landscape where the old falls away and the new has not yet blossomed. You will feel lost. Conversations that once felt familiar suddenly seem meaningless. Relationships that used to feel close now only exhaust you. You start to withdraw, not because you hate anyone, but because you no longer find yourself in those spaces. From the outside, people may think you are avoiding life, off balance, but in truth, you are returning inward to the place where your soul begins speaking to you directly. This loneliness is not a punishment. It is an initiation. In every spiritual tradition, a period of retreat precedes rebirth into a truer self. The Buddha left the palace. Jesus entered the desert, and Jung called it nigredo, the blackening of the soul. When old structures collapse, so a new consciousness can form. For you, it may arrive in midnight silence, in an empty room, or in a moment when you realize no one truly understands you. During this time, you may want to go back to revisit old relationships, old rhythms, just to feel safe. But your soul knows the old door has closed. The old people, the old roles, the old ways of loving are now only shadows. If you try to return, you'll find they no longer fit, like forcing on a shirt that has shrunk in the Sunday. Loneliness at the depth of the soul is not the absence of people, it is the separation from what is no longer true. When you stop seeking external approval, you begin to hear the inner voice. At first it is small and trembling, like wind through a forest, but the quieter you become, the clearer it sounds. It does not come from a fearful ego. It comes from the part of your soul that has always known the way home. You will start to notice small miracles, an old song playing at the exact moment you need it, a stranger smiling as if you've known each other forever, or a dream that wakes you in tears for reasons you cannot name. All of these are the universe's way of saying, you are not alone. In truth, you have never been alone. You are learning to feel presences without form awakened ancestors, companion souls, the energies of those resonant with you moving toward you, even if you cannot see them yet. Loneliness is only a frequency shift, the in-between where you leave the old station and tune into the new. Carl Jung once said, "A person who cannot endure their own solitude will never discover themselves." You are in that very phase where your soul strips away outer noise so you can hear your essence. If you dare to stay with it, loneliness becomes a teacher. It teaches you to be at peace without anyone else. It teaches you to love without grasping. It teaches you to be present, not to be seen, but to be yourself. And then, after you have sat long enough in that darkness, something strange happens. You begin to see its beauty. You realize that nothing is more frightening than not being yourself, and that silence, solitude, and emptiness are in fact freedom, freedom from expectations, freedom from roles, freedom from needing to be loved the right way. One day, you will wake in a quiet joy, needing no one to understand, no one to acknowledge, nothing to prove, and that is the sign you have crossed the desert. From that solitude, you emerge as one who has found their soul. And from that moment, you will begin to meet your people, souls who have walked through darkness and learned how to kindle their own light. Chapter 6, The Light Bearer. Becoming a mirror of awakening for your family. After you pass through solitude, after your soul is rinsed by silence and tears, something profound begins. Your energy changes. You no longer react from old reflexes, no longer need to prove anything, no longer try to heal others. You begin to understand that the only way to heal a system is to become light within it, not to fight against it. That is when you become the light bearer, in your lineage, in the very place that once confined you. As your energy shifts, you will notice something curious. Those who once hurt you can no longer control your emotions. They may try the old tricks, provocation, guilt, emotional manipulation, but they no longer work. You smile, not from superiority, but from clarity. You no longer get pulled into their play because you recognize the script is written by fear and unconsciousness, not deliberate malice. This is the soul's turning point. When you do not need to battle to prove you are right, you simply abide in truth. True light does not argue to be acknowledged, it shines. And in your calm presence, surrounding shadows begin to reveal themselves. Not because you strive to expose anyone, but because light always leaves darkness with nowhere to hide. Your family will respond in different ways. Some will withdraw uneasy in the face of a peace they don't understand. Others will resist trying to drag you back into old roles. Why are you so cold now? You never used to be like this. But some will quietly observe. They will notice you no longer react, no longer resent, no longer chase validation. And within them, a seed is planted. This is how light works, silently yet expansively. You don't need to preach or teach awakening. You just need to live clear, honest, true. When you are free from the victim role, others begin to realize they can be free too. When you hold boundaries without hatred, they sense a different energy, strong without violence, clear without judgment. This is also what Jung called the mirror effect. When one member in a system restructures their psyche, the entire system begins to tremble. Anyone who has been reflected by your parents, siblings, friends, will be compelled to face what they have denied. Some will resent you for this, because your light exposes them. But some will awaken. They will think, if she could step out, perhaps I can too. You become a light bearer not by saving others, but by refusing to let them extinguish you. You are living proof that one can be born in chaos and still choose peace, be raised in falsehood and still choose truth, be discarded and still choose love. Remember, brighter light invites stronger tests. As you shine, those not ready may return to attack you, even cloaked in concern. I'm just worried about you. You've changed too much. Are you sure this is good? Do not take the bait. You do not need to convince them. They will understand when they are ready or they won't, and that is okay. To be a light bearer is not to save the world. It is to keep your flame from going out. Light is not a weapon. It is a state of being. When you stand in truth, light radiates on its own, and darkness adjusts in its own way. This is also when you see the difference between compassion and blind empathy. Compassion sees another's pain without assuming responsibility for it. Blind empathy takes on that pain as if you could heal it for them. That difference is the boundary line of a mature soul. From here, you stop trying to change the family, make them understand, or force confessions. You simply live your truth, and by your life you set a new frequency for the system. As you heal, ancestral energy begins to move. Those who have passed on, once trapped in guilt or silence, are released. The living, though they may not know why, begin to feel lighter. This is the resonance of a light bearer, a kind of natural justice without judgment, promise, or repayment. By choosing awakening, you shift the current of your lineage. And if one day you hear a small whisper within, "Thank you for daring to be different," it is not your imagination. It is the souls of those before you grateful to the one who ended a long inheritance of pain. You are no longer the rebellious child, the black sheep, or the family traitor. You are the torch bearer, and as you walk by that light, other wandering souls will see the way. Chapter 7, Breaking Bones to Grow Wings. When pain becomes spiritual power, there comes a stage, after you begin carrying light, when everything that seemed stable suddenly collapses. Someone you trusted leaves. A cherished plan fails. Your body is tired, your mind is confused. You ask, "I've already endured so much, why must I suffer more?" And in that very moment, your soul is doing something no one warned you about restructuring. When a snake sheds its skin, the old layer doesn't fall away gently. It tears, it scrapes, sometimes it bleeds. But without tearing, it cannot grow. Likewise, when you shift to a new frequency, your body, mind, and energy must break whatever kept you small. That's why spiritual awakening can, at times, hurt more than the darkest phases before. Not because you took the wrong path, but because you're expanding so quickly the old system can't keep up. There will be days you feel exhausted, nights you cry without knowing why. No one has done anything to you, yet you feel as if you're dissolving from the inside out. This is not depression. It is a spiritual bone break, the soul adjusting the old structure so wings can grow. Jung called this stage nigredo, the blackening of the soul, when every self-illusion is burned away. No more, "I am strong, I am kind, I am lovable." Only I bear, without roles, without labels, without clinging. Everything that once defined you, career, titles, relationships, beliefs, begins to disintegrate because the soul cannot emerge from the cocoon while clutching old shells. In this phase, your single task is, do not go back. Instinct will push you toward the familiar, reaching out to old partners, taking a safe job, pretending you're fine so others won't worry. But the soul does not return to lessons already completed. If you force yourself back to the comfort zone, the pressure will only intensify, as if the universe was saying, you no longer belong there. Instead of fleeing the feeling of dissolution, sit with it and listen. Every ache, every fear, every memory that surges up carries a fragment of soul you once left behind. When you allow pain to be present, it returns to you not as a wound, but as wisdom. You begin to see that pain was never against you, it was asking to be heard. Perhaps you once thought strength meant feeling nothing, powering through everything. True strength, however, arrives when you can feel it all without being swept away. When you can sit in the storm, trembling, with tears falling, and still know, I am safe, I am being reborn. Deep within this process, a quiet miracle occurs. One morning you wake to find your heart lighter, not because the problem has vanished, but because it no longer defines you. You can remember the past without the stab. You look at those who hurt you and feel tenderness. Not pity, but pure compassion, because you understand they too are lost souls searching for a way as you once were. That is the moment your soul grows wings. You no longer strain to forgive, you are simply free. You no longer need to win, you simply desire peace. You no longer need to be understood. You understand yourself, and that is enough. The one once labeled the black sheep becomes the keeper of light. But this light doesn't come from trying to be good. It comes from having passed through darkness without losing your heart. You no longer mirror the wound of the system. You mirror its healing. From here, you begin to notice small miracles, not the fantastical, but meaningful synchronicities, meeting the right person at the right time, receiving the message you needed, or feeling guided though you can't say by whom. These are signs your soul is aligning with the current of the universe. Pain has completed its mission to wake you. It is no longer needed. Let it go. Let your body, mind, and soul become light. Let the new wings open, not to fly away from life, but to fly within it, with a new awareness and a heart tempered into diamond, once shattered, now unbreakable. So if you are in the midst of pain, do not despair. Remember, when bones break, it means they are growing. When the soul aches, it is expanding. And when you think you are collapsing, in truth you are being reborn, not as a victim of the old story, but as the author of a new chapter. Chapter 8, becoming the healer of your bloodline. When your pain becomes a door for the ancestors, once your soul has grown wings, you begin to see the wider picture. Your journey is not only your own. Every tear you shed, every boundary you set, every word you no longer say just to be loved, all of it heals the souls who came before you, those who never had the chance to be free. You become the healer of the bloodline, the first in the system brave enough to say, the pain ends with me. You start to recognize repeating patterns in your family, the gentle woman wounded by a lifetime of endurance, the strong man isolated because he was never allowed to be vulnerable, the marriages that fracture, the children drafted to carry adults' emotions. These are not someone's private issues, but a chain of inherited energy flowing quietly across generations. And you, the most awakened soul in that current, are the one chosen to cut the cycle. You didn't choose this by force of will. It chose you by destiny. And though at times you may wish you had never awakened, wishing you could keep sleeping, living like everyone else, believing everything's fine, a deeper part of you knows the lineage needs someone to stop. To stop does not mean to turn your back or deny. To stop means to look directly. You look at your mother's silence and see a fear of abandonment. You look at your father's anger and see a shame never spoken. You look at relatives who criticize you and hear the echo of generations who were never loved well. The more you see, the less you blame. Because you understand, they are not bad. They are repeating what they were taught. Love is control. Love is endurance. Love is self-sacrifice. Precisely when you stop fighting them, the energy of the lineage begins to move. You don't need to heal anyone. Healing spreads simply because you no longer resonate with the old pain. When you stop reacting, stop repeating, stop believing you must carry everyone's emotions, a new current appears. Peace. Then the quiet miracle happens. Family members, though they cannot explain it, begin to feel you differently. They may still never say sorry, yet they criticize less. They may not embrace you, but their eyes soften. They don't know why, but they feel lighter around you because your field has shifted from bearing to releasing. This is what Jung called the justice of the soul. When one person in a system reaches a new level of awareness, the whole system begins to vibrate with it. Not because of theory, but because consciousness is frequency. Each time you choose truth over fear, you raise that frequency, and it travels even to those who have passed on. You may sense this in meditation, in dreams, or when an old memory surfaces and your heart softens. That is the ancestors saying, thank you. Many of them lived in silence, in social constraints, in a resignation that was praised as virtue. They could not speak or escape, yet their souls held a hope that one day someone in this bloodline would be brave enough to break the chains. You are the answer to that hope. Being a healer of the bloodline isn't glamorous. Sometimes it simply means choosing not to argue again, choosing not to react when provoked, choosing to forgive without forgetting, choosing to say no when everyone expects a yes. Each small act is an energetic snip, cutting the cords of inherited bondage. You may feel torn between love and the need for separation, between gratitude and painful memories. Remember, you do not have to choose sides. You are the point of integration. When you hold both poles, light and shadow, you release them from their conflict. Imagine your soul as an ancient tree standing in the ancestral field. Your roots reach deep into the earth, touching generations asleep. Each time you forgive, your roots spread wider. Each time you speak truth, water seeps into the soil. Each time you name what was hidden, light pours through the canopy, and one day your lineage, both living and departed, will be bathed in the light you planted. You won't need to say a word. Just live true. Once you heal, that energy flows upstream, soothing the suffering souls of the past, and downstream clearing a path so future generations may live free. You are not living only for yourself. You are rewriting your family's story. And this is the true meaning of being chosen, not to endure, but to liberate. Not to be a hero, but to be real with an open heart, clear boundaries, and a gentle light shining from the place that was once a wound. For from the deepest wound, the spring of healing begins to flow. Chapter 9, When Light Meets Shadow. The final test before freedom. Don't assume the healing journey ends when you feel at peace. Peace is only the doorway to a deeper test when the light you've cultivated begins to touch the shadow you've never fully seen. Within every awakened soul, two forces coexist. One longs to expand, the other fears losing control. The closer you move toward freedom, the more your old self, the part that survived by reacting, defending, and worrying, tries to pull you back. It isn't evil, it's afraid. You may find yourself slipping into emotions you thought were over. Anger, sadness, isolation, confusion. It can feel like backsliding, but in truth, this is the final spiral of transformation. Just as mud must surface before the water clears, the darkness within you must be faced before it can dissolve. Carl Jung said, "No one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This is that phase. The shadow returns to be seen. Long-buried memories may rise, moments of rejection, words you swallowed, the ache of not belonging. You'll see that pain is not the enemy. It is a part of your soul once abandoned, now returning to be loved. Welcome it not with fear, but with the light you have nurtured along the way. Say to the pain, "I see you. I'm ready to bring you home." In doing so, you complete what your lineage has never dared to do, face the darkness without fleeing. No more blaming parents, society, or fate. You begin to understand they were mirrors, showing you what in yourself remained unhealed. For example, if you grew up needing to be strong, to be accepted, you recognize your shadow as the fear of weakness. If you were treated unjustly, your shadow may be the urge to control, so you'll never be hurt again. If you carried other people's emotions, your shadow may be the compulsion to save someone. Shadow doesn't need erasing. It needs understanding. Behind every fear is a forgotten fragment of soul waiting for your touch. Let your body guide you. When anger rises, instead of suppressing it, sit still, breathe, and listen for its origin. When sadness swells, resist the urge to positivity. Wash. Offer it a safe space to melt. When loneliness returns, place a hand on your heart and say, "I'm here with myself." That is how you make the darkness conscious, not with ideas, but with presence. Then you'll notice something strange. True light does not banish shadow, it absorbs it. Like the lotus unafraid of mud, because mud is exactly where it grows, you begin to see that darkness was never your opponent. It is part of your movement toward wholeness. From that moment, inner divisions fade. No more good bright parts versus bad dark parts. Only one being deep, true, and complete. You stop seeking light outside because you have become light through your own acceptance. This is the stage Jung called individuation, the union of ego and soul. You stop living by others' expectations, stop wearing masks to be loved, stop hiding the imperfect pieces. You become real not because you are more perfect, but because you no longer fear yourself. When you reach this state, the outer world begins to reflect the inner. The people you meet will be deeper. Relationships will be clearer. You will no longer attract manipulators or situations that force you to strain because you no longer resonate with that energy. It's not that you avoid darkness, you have integrated it. The final test of the journey is not defeating the shadow, but loving it. Loving the parts of you that were afraid, jealous, petty, fragile. Loving them until they soften into light and no longer need to hide. Then a simple, liberating truth dawns. Light does not oppose darkness. Light is the capacity to look into darkness and keep loving. At this point, you are no longer merely healing. You become the healing. No effort, no performance. Your very presence is restorative. In your eyes, others glimpse hope that they too can live authentically, love the unpolished parts of themselves, and still be embraced by light. This is when the black sheep's journey reaches a new octave. You are no longer the family's outcast, but the guardian at the threshold between light and shadow, where every wandering soul can find the way home. Chapter 10, The Soul's Rebirth. When you stop seeking light and become it, after you traverse the deepest layers of shadow, after you have seen, embraced, and reconciled with every part of yourself, something miraculous happens. You begin to live lightly. Not because your life is suddenly problem-free, but because you no longer need to resist its current. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And find yourself smiling, so this too is part of me. Home? Rebirth doesn't arrive like fireworks. It comes like a quiet dawn. No one sees the instant it begins. Only later do you notice you are smiling in the very places that once broke you. What were wounds become wisdom. Those who seemed like enemies become teachers. Memories that once made you tremble become proof of your courage. This is the phase many esoteric traditions call rubedo, the red stage of union, and renewed life force after the soul's descent. If nigredo was the death of ego, rubedo is the resurrection of the soul. You no longer live by reaction, but by awareness. You do not chase, you let what is meant come to you. The small things grow sacred. A hot cup of tea in the morning, a breeze through the window, a sincere glance. No more urge to prove, debate, or persuade. You don't need to shine to be seen. You are the light. Light is neither loud nor competitive, nor in search of an audience. It simply is, and everything around it is illumined. You no longer care whether others understand you because you understand yourself. You no longer fear being forgotten because you have become part of life itself. You need not hunt for purpose. Your conscious presence is the purpose. Rebirth also means creative energy returns. You may write, paint, sing, garden, or simply live more beautifully each day. You no longer try to change the world, yet the world around you changes in the ease of your presence. People feel safe near you not because you say the right things, but because you are the right thing. From here, life becomes a dance. You don't need to control the rhythm, you only need to feel it. What once terrified you, loss, endings, failure, becomes another movement in the symphony of living. You learn to move with the music without losing yourself. You'll begin to attract souls of similar frequency, people who don't come to complete you, but to shine with you. They don't need you to save them, and you don't need them to heal you. What remains is a quiet recognition. I see you, I know you. We have both walked through the dark. These connections are not loud, but they are deep and true. At this stage, the line between sacred and ordinary dissolves. Every breath, task, and moment becomes meditation. You don't leave the world to find enlightenment, you carry enlightenment into the world. Rebirth doesn't make you superhuman, it makes you more human. You cry more easily, laugh more honestly, forgive more quickly, and love more deeply. But this love is different. It is no longer tied to need or lack. It is the love of seeing, of presence, of pure gratitude for being alive, feeling, and being. You no longer need to find yourself because you are home. You no longer need to seek meaning because breathing, living, touching, and loving are meaning enough. Looking back at the path, sleepless nights, tears, farewells, fresh beginnings, you no longer see tragedy. You see a soul perfecting itself, layer by layer, life by life. From here you live like a craftsman of light, not working for recognition, but to radiate. Not trying to help others, but showing up as a mirror. Not chasing glory, but serving as a living proof of one simple, profound truth. No darkness is strong enough to extinguish a soul that has learned to love itself. This is when you are truly reborn, not into someone else, but into yourself, whole, deep, and full of light. And when others look at you, they no longer see a black sheep. They see a soul who walked through the night, was once broken, yet still chose to love, to live, and to shine. You are the testimony to the universe's oldest truth. Light was not made to defeat darkness, but to reveal that darkness never truly existed. Chapter 11. The Awakened One in a Sleeping World. Your mission in everyday life. When your soul has been reborn, when the inner light becomes your natural state, you'll notice a paradox. The world around you remains the same. People still rage, deceive, compete, and wound one another. You see the chaos, but this time there's no despair or contempt, only quiet understanding, because you know every soul is sleeping, as you once were. This is the stage many describe as returning to the world, yet no longer belonging to it. You work, talk, meet, laugh, but deep down you know you're operating from another depth. You no longer want to change anyone, because you understand awakening cannot be forced. A seed sprouts only when it's ready. Your task is not to pull anyone out of darkness, but to keep a lamp lit, so they can see the path when they're willing to walk it. You grow calm before what once set you ablaze. When someone insults you, instead of reacting, you notice the pain in their eyes. When the world turns chaotic, you don't spiral, because you know chaos is the outer sign of collective rebirth. When others attack you, you no longer need to win, you only need to be true. And that truth becomes a mirror in which they begin to see themselves. The awakened one does not avoid life, but lives it as practice. Every situation becomes a mirror, every relationship a lesson. The person who offends you teaches boundaries. The one who leaves teaches letting go. The one who loves you teaches gratitude. Together they help you maintain your light. You'll also realize no one can touch you the way they once did. Not because you're numb, but because you've merged with a higher field. Fear of loss turns into trust. Loneliness becomes stillness. Meaninglessness becomes gratitude. What once shattered you now makes you smile, because you know this too is helping me awaken. And so you work, love, live, create, but with new awareness. When you cook, you are nourishing with love. When you work, you are contributing light to the collective current. When you listen, you open a space where another can be themselves. When you forgive, you release generations from old burdens. The mission of the awakened is not grand. It lives in the quality of each small act. Every time you choose presence over judgment, love over fear, stillness over reaction, you quietly retune the world's energetic field. Carl Jung once said, "No one can change the world without first changing themselves. But when a person truly changes, the world around them cannot help but change as well." That is you, the one who has changed. The former black sheep, now a broadcast tower for a new consciousness. You will begin to draw kindred souls, others stepping out of the collective sleep. You may become a guide, a teacher, a creator, or simply a calm presence for your family. Whatever the role, it springs from the same root, awakened awareness. But be mindful. As your light grows, the collective shadow will test you more. You may be misunderstood, shunned, accused of being delusional, odd, holier than thou. Remember, this isn't the truth about you. It's the old world trembling before the new frequency you carry. Don't argue. Don't explain. Keep living true, loving, creating. Your life itself will be the most convincing proof. The world doesn't need more people shouting, "Let's love." The world needs people who become love. It doesn't need more spiritual theory. It needs souls who live simply and see clearly. It doesn't need more saving lights. It needs authentic, humble humans who shine in the ordinariness of their days. That is your role, the awakened one in a sleeping world. You are not a prophet or a savior. You are living proof of a simple, profound truth. Awakening does not remove you from the world. It lets you see the divine within it. Live this way, and you sow seeds for a new world, a world that doesn't need rescuing because it is healed from within, one person at a time, remembering who they are. In the next chapter, we enter the final movement of this journey, when you become the frequency of love itself, no longer split between soul and life, but living as part of the heartbeat of the universe. Chapter 12. The bearer of love's frequency. When you become the universe's breath, there is a stage in awakening where words fail. Nothing left to explain, nothing left to prove. You simply know a knowing that doesn't come from thought, but from the felt truth in every cell. I and life are no longer separate. You no longer seek love, because you are love. Not romantic, blazing, or rescuing love, but quiet, diffusive, boundless love. The love that feels like the universe's pulse beating within you. You see a part of yourself in everyone. Even those who hurt you appear as souls learning their lessons. Forgiveness is no longer required, because you understand there was nothing to forgive. Everything was part of evolution's curriculum. This is the stage of union, where the ego no longer needs recognition. The soul no longer tries to escape the world, and love is not an emotion, but the natural state of being. You breathe, and it is a prayer. You smile, and light radiates. You are silent, and the universe hears a song. You have passed through it all: pain, solitude, awakening, collapse, rebirth. Now you carry love's frequency not by effort, but by ceasing to resist. You understand that true love is not grandeur, but absolute simplicity. Love is pouring water without hurry. Love is looking into another's eyes without words. Love is letting someone go and remaining at peace. Love is welcoming every form of life, even loss, because you know nothing is ever truly lost. The bearer of love's frequency doesn't teach others to love, they simply live it. They don't preach peace, they are peace. They don't search for God, they realize God never left. In this stage, your energy heals without trying. A touch, a glance, a word at the right time can dissolve another's pain, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. You become a gate through which pure love moves. And paradoxically, you no longer feel special. You feel profoundly ordinary, ordinary in a sacred way. You live slower, eat less, speak less, think less, but feel more, and are more present. You don't need goals to feel worthy, nor destinations to find meaning. Everything is already complete, even when imperfect. Jung said the goal is not to be better, but to be whole. That is you now, a whole soul. No separation between ego and soul, light and shadow. All dissolves like water into ocean. You don't disappear, you return. At the deepest level you realize, living, breathing, loving, laughing, weeping, all are sacred offerings to the universe. No ritual needed, no temple required. Each honest moment is a soul ceremony. When asked, "What is your mission?" you simply smile. You know mission is not something to do, but someone to be. You are no longer the family's black sheep, not the victim of the past, not even the warrior of light straining to hold the world. You are the breath of life. You are light in human form. You are the small daily wonder that needs no witness. And that is where the journey ends, not because you've arrived, but because you have become the path. You no longer need to seek light, because you are light. You no longer need to carry love, because you have become love. And as you walk through the world, you need say nothing at all. Your presence is enough to help the world remember that within every person, no matter how lost, a lamp has never gone out. And when people remember the light within them, the night of the world will no longer be night. In the end, you will realize that the journey of the black sheep was never a curse. It was a sacred initiation into awakening. Every pain that once broke you, every person who once wounded you, and every door that once closed in your face were all torches along the path, forcing you to look inward and find the light you had so freely given to others. You were not born to be immediately understood. You were born to make others start questioning. Not to be loved easily, but to teach the world what real love means. Not to blend into the crowd, but to awaken it through the quiet power of your difference. And one day, you will stop calling yourself the black sheep. You'll understand that black is not sin. It's the canvas on which light becomes visible. You'll see that the darkness that once surrounded you was the perfect frame for your light to shine even brighter. When you walk in awareness, you no longer fight the old world. You are quietly rebirthing it through the peace within your own heart. You are the meeting point between light and shadow, between humanity and spirit, between past and future. You are the bridge between two worlds. And when you live true to your frequency, you not only heal yourself, you open a path for all those still wandering in the dark. So if anyone ever made you doubt your worth, smile. For they have not yet seen what the universe has always known. You were never lost. You were the signal of a new era. Now, there is nothing left to fear, nothing left to prove, because when you stand still in your own light, the entire universe recognizes you. And from that moment on, you are no longer the black sheep. You are the bearer of light,